Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast, everyone. This is Abe, your host, with my co-host, Lemmy Chillmeister. Actually, I got home yesterday and put out an episode of Leave the World Behind. I have to pat myself on the back. Speak of the devil. The reason I hadn't put out an episode of Leave the World Behind in so long was I was dealing with my depression, which is why I take this stuff, along with ashwagandha. You guys already know. Depression fucking blows. I don't know what to say, but it literally makes you want to lay in bed and do nothing. I had to force myself out of bed just to do daily chores, like mow the lawn and wash dishes. Yeah. I don't know if any of you all struggle with depression, but it fucking blows. But that's why it took me so long getting a Leave the World Behind episode out, because depression, you know. But I finally put one out. I recorded it early this morning. It's now 9 o'clock at night, and that episode is actually premiering as I'm recording this. So this episode will come out later tonight. I've been banging them out, baby. You guys know me, like, I want to do this as a job. I take this shit serious, but it is fun, and I enjoy doing it. It's therapeutic for me. So go check that episode out. We get into deer symbolism, the occult symbolism of deer. It gets into even Christianity too. What deer means to Christians, what deer means to Native Americans, what deer means to, what it means psychologically, like therapeutically, what psychologists say it means in dreams. A little bit of woo-woo, a little bit of science. And we bring it up because deer is a huge symbol in Leave the World Behind. And go check out that series in general. It's a banger. Everyone's been loving that series, so go check it out. Today, though, we're going to get into last episode. It was the episode I put out yesterday, the one before the one that's premiering now. It is predictive programming of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. We're actually going to dive back into that again. And Daddy's got some show and tell, conspiracy show and tell. So yesterday we got into Nicholas Sparks, and we got into how there is predictive programming in one of his books, which is called Counting Miracles, by Nicholas Sparks. He also wrote The Notebook. And after I finished that podcast, and me and Miss McGillicuddy talked about it on our interview that we did together. I call it intuition because I'm an occultist, I'm a witch. She's a Christian, and she believes that the Holy Spirit is intuition, that we're both talking about the same thing, and she's just using a Christianized lens of it, and I'm using a witch lens of it. Not that I'm arguing semantics or nothing, but I guess you could say the Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulder. And after I finished that podcast yesterday, I was like, man, I would love to get my hands on that book. Because you guys know I'm a book collector. I mean, that's what started this channel. When I first started this channel, even way before I became a podcaster, the channel started out, if you go back to my very first videos, the channel started out as a book review channel. I was such a bookworm, reading conspiracy books, reading occult books, reading religious books. I was consuming red pill books, and I was like talking my wife's ear off. At the time, we were just dating. We weren't even married yet. And I was driving her nuts because I'd just sit there like, oh my God, I'm reading this about the Knights Templar and the assassins, and I'm reading this about Noah and Atlantis. I'm reading this about UFOs. And finally one day I'm like, I'm probably driving her nuts. She still loves me, but I'm driving her nuts. I need a way to channel, pun intended, this talking energy that I have. Other people need to hear what I'm saying. There's so much stuff in these books, man. I need to tell them about it. And I started a book review channel. So you guys know I collect books. Daddy's got this. Oh, that's what I was going to say, though. The Holy Spirit, or intuition, whichever you prefer. We're not going to argue about it in the comments or anything. Be nice. My intuition, the Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulder and said, that book's in your work. Because I podcast outside of work. It said, go inside. You got a little bit of time. Go inside. Go check out the book section. So I went. Sure enough, last copy on the shelf. Now, this was 30% off, $22.50. I get an employee discount. 30% off through 10/22. So I got 30% off. Cool. Plus employee discount because I work here. It cost me like $18.50. And I almost didn't buy it because I'm not rich, y'all. I don't make money off this channel. I actually put more money into this channel than I will ever make. And I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because this brings me happiness and I enjoy doing it. It's why I get so mad when people hate on me and stuff. It's like, dude, I'm doing this because it makes me happy and it's free content, you know. I'm not making money off this. I'm not a grifter. But I'm not rich, dude. I live in a trailer. I drive a 97 Pontiac. I work at a grocery store. I'm not rich by any means. I live off of hot dogs, ramen, bologna sandwiches. And I almost didn't get it, but I'm like, dude, it's the last one on the shelf. I have to get it. So then, when I got it, I finally just was like, fuck it, just buy it, because you know it'll be gone. I've done this a billion times throughout my life, and I don't know if you all have done this. Like, I'm real scared of spending money on myself. For one, there's like a shameful feeling of like, oh, you don't deserve this, you know? I don't know if you all deal with this or if it's just me in my crazy head, but there's almost this feeling of you don't deserve it, you know? And if you spend your money on something stupid like this, a tree's going to fall on your house and you're going to need the money and you're going to wish you never blew it on something stupid like this, you know? Like, I just feel guilty every time I buy myself something, you know? I don't know if you guys struggle with that, but I do. That's why when people say like, oh, you're egotistical, it's like, I don't think you understand how much I put myself down, like daily, mentally, up here. Sorry, I'm getting wet, but daddy's got demons, baby. But anyways, so I bought it. I was like, I have to get it, man. There's a reason why that little tap on my shoulder, like I have to get it. So then after I got it, I'm like trying to find screenshots and all these channels and content creators. I do have to say this. I have to get on to you all. I've seen multiple content creators bring up the passage in this book that is predictive programming. None of them say which page it's on. None of them have said which chapter it is. They've just said, oh, it's Nicholas Sparks. This is the book. It's in the book. So at first I was like looking it up on Google, trying everything I could. And I even like found a screenshot, but the page number was chopped off. I'm like, fuck. And it was on a Kindle. So I'm like, I don't even know if that's the actual physical page number. Two, back in the day, you used to be able to type in a paragraph on Google. Do you all remember this shit? You used to be able to type in a paragraph on Google and Google would figure out, oh, this person is trying to find what book this is, who wrote it, the page number, the chapter. They're trying to figure it out. so you could type in, I typed the entire fucking passage. They are trying to memory hold this shit. This is where we go down the rabbit hole. I swear to God, they're trying to memory hold this shit. They don't want this shit out there, dude. Because nothing was popping up. And finally, after digging for like an hour, I had to do some Sherlock Holmes tinfoil hat. Bunny Rabbit had to go down the rabbit hole to figure out what fucking page this was. Finally, I wrote it down on my hand. I found someone's Facebook post. And I'm like, I ain't even got Facebook, so I can't even read it. But I figured out enough through the actual like page scrolling without logging into Facebook, without clicking on it. I found a little fragment that said page 167. So if you're superstitious and you want to play pick 3, 167 might be a winner. Just saying. I try not to gamble that, and I can't gamble right now, but play 167, pick 3. Anyways, and if you win, give me a cut, dude. Give me a fucking cut. 167. By the way, what is that numerology? I would love to know that. Like, delve deep into the numerology of 167. Ooh, that might be a rabbit hole we'll have to get into. Or the gematria of 167. So finally, I found the page. I have the fragment here. Which, by the way, as a bookmark, I'm using a McDonald's. I don't think that has any of my info, so I think we're good. I don't think I showed it either. My order number was 666. Dun, dun, dun. So the Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulder, and the devil was my order number, 666. Which, by the way, I did a whole episode on 666. I don't think it's as bad as people think. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. There's a science behind it. Also, I just don't think it's a bad number. I'm not scared of numbers. I think a lot of numbers are demonized. Go check out that video I did. It wasn't even an episode. It was just a video. This was before I even started podcasting. I used to be a content creator, not a podcaster. I used to just make short videos way back in the day. I think it's literally called 666, you know, like what the meaning is and shit. We delve deep into it. 666, 167. Yeah, 167. So, let's get, long story short, I have the book. We're going to read a fragment. Looking at the time, we're going to get into it. So, actually, you know what we'll do? We will jump into Nicholas Sparks, Counting Miracles. And here's something about this book. So, there are full chapters in this book, but the chapters are broken up into parts. So this is chapter 7, part 1 is where this fragment is. So I think today we're going to read just part 1, chapter 7, part 1 of this Nicholas Sparks, Counting Miracles, and see what it has to say, see the predictive programming of Hurricane Helene. So, stay tuned. We're going to dive right in. Almost forgot. And if we have time, I want to do a deep dive on Nicholas Sparks in general. We'll at least read the book jacket and read the description, so that way we're not too confused on what's going on. So, chapter 7. Jasper saw the white deer. We just were talking about deer. Deer is popping up again. I do not believe in coincidences, man. Synchronicity. Go check out last episode of Deer Symbolism. I need to rewatch it and re-listen and delve back into deer symbolism, because apparently deer is popping up. This isn't coincidence, dude. I'm getting cold chills. Jasper saw the white deer, though not in the way he wanted. It was on the early morning news, something Jasper seldom watched. He long since grown bored by the television, but for whatever reason he felt an undeniable urge to tune in shortly after he awakened on Tuesday morning. He saw the blurry photo taken from the scenic road before the segment segued into a video that a hiker had supposedly taken the day before. Roughly 10 seconds long, it showed the white deer standing near a rocky outcropping and seeming to be staring at the camera, its head held high. Because of the foliage around it and the shakiness of the video, it was difficult to make out the antlers or even its size, and soon enough it turned and started walking away until it vanished into the forest. The newscasters, practically vibrating with excitement on the early morning broadcast, noted that the video had already gone viral. Jasper wasn't sure what viral meant, only that it probably wasn't good. He guessed that it meant the more people would learn about the white deer, possibly luring even more poachers to the area. So he's worried that it's like this albino deer that poachers are going to go kill it, you know. We got into deer symbolism, but I really wouldn't know what an albino deer means. I guess I'd have to Google that, and we'll have to do a deep dive on what does an albino deer symbolically mean. Not a deer, specifically an albino deer. Then you would have to be, as an occultist, you would have to go, what does the color white mean in occultism? It could perhaps tie in with maybe one of the spheres on the Tree of Life, Kabbalah. What is the occult meaning behind the color white? Interesting. We're going down the rabbit hole. And if you know in the comments, hit me up. Jasper turned off the television and mulled what to do next. Trying to save the white deer meant finding it first. Unfortunately, there were now 2 locations where it had been spotted. Even more important, he recognized the area where the video had been taken. There had been a unique outcropping of boulders in the background decades ago. His kids used to scramble and climb over them on weekend hikes. A few times, they'd even picnicked nearby. Walking to the kitchen, Jasper noticed one of the drawers where he stored his maps. Most of them were worn out and out of date, but near the bottom, he found the one he wanted. It was a country map representing the city of Asheboro. Remember, Asheboro in this book. Asheville, North Carolina, that's the one that got hit. So, coincidence? I think not. Of Asheboro, along with portions of the Uwharrie National Forest. At the table, he used a pen to mark where the photo had been taken off Scenic Road. Another mark near the boulders indicated the video. He estimated the distance between the 2 places at a couple of miles, and he drew an oval between them. This was, he assumed, the white deer's current range, and it made sense to him. He knew there was food and water in the area, and as Charlie had said, the deer would likely remain there until either the food stores were depleted or it felt threatened. Smart poachers, he suspected, would also be able to estimate the white deer's current range. Anyone could mark the spots and draw an oval on the map. Even if they didn't know the location of the boulders, a deer range was a deer's range. So all they'd have to do was draw a circle out from the photograph on Scenic Road. At the same time, it was the one thing to find and kill the deer. It was another thing entirely to transport a heavy carcass from the forest without being discovered, which meant they'd need access for their vehicles. They'd have to know the roads that led in and out of the forest and predict how busy they might be at various times of the day. They'd also have to find and create their own off-road trails to lead them close to the white deer's range. They'd need to know the locations of the campgrounds and the ranger stations, if only to avoid them, not to mention steer clear of hikers and folks who showed up in jeeps to go off-roading. It had been years since Jasper had driven through the forest, and because he suspected that there were more roads and trails now in the past, his first step was to figure out how a poacher might approach the deer's range and then exit the forest without being caught. Before he set out to do just that, Jasper brewed a pot of coffee and made an egg sandwich for breakfast. The egg was burned at the edges, but he'd never been much good at cooking. That had always been Audrey's passion. Audrey, I have no clue who it is. I've never read this book. Demonstrated in the dishes she used to bring him before she left for college. When she had left for Sweet Briar, Jasper's savings had been nearly depleted. He was 18 and needing a job. He found work with a contractor named Ned Taylor, who was unlike Stope in nearly every way. Elderly and overweight, with a shock of unruly white hair, he puffed ceaselessly on a corncob pipe whenever he was at the site. Most gratifying of all, he praised the quality of Jasper's work from the very beginning. Jasper had barely settled into his new job. However, when his life was upended again in September, only a month after Audrey had left, Hurricane Helene unleashed massive rainfall and a nearby creek in Asheboro. Remember, Asheboro, Asheville. Quickly rose to dangerous levels. Fortunately or unfortunately, as the case may be, Jasper was at his house in town, not the cabin, when it began to flood. He pushed through the water that soon reached his waist, gathering up photographs from the mantel, his father's Bible, and as many of the carvings they'd made together as he could carry, hauling it all to his truck when he'd parked on higher ground, just in case. As the storm continued to rage, a lobby in the yard snapped and crashed through the roof. Days later, my brother, he had his roof cave in from a tree. I'm not sure what a lobby is, though. Do y'all know? If you do, hit me up in the comments. Days later, after the water had finally receded and hot weather returned, mold began growing on the walls and the floors, ruining pretty much everything in the house that the storm hadn't. Like his neighbors and others in town, Jasper contacted his insurance company. He wasn't worried. Like the other bills, he'd continue to pay the premiums after his father had passed. But when he finally met with the claims adjuster, Jasper discovered that buried in that policy was an exclusion for damage caused by flooding. The adjuster pointed out the section and read the words aloud, emphasizing the point. The policy would, however, pay for the roof damage, so no flood insurance, babies. No flood insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, no flood insurance. The claims adjuster slid a check across the table. It wasn't much and nowhere near the amount it would take to repair the house. In the silence that followed, Jasper heard his father's voice. James 1:12. So, Bible. I guess this is a Christian book. I didn't know that. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. I like that. He deposited the check, moved into the cabin, and continued working for Ned. In the evenings and on weekends, he removed sodden, moldy furniture from the house in Asheboro. He stripped off the roof, tore up the floors, ripped out the plaster walls, and all the electrical wiring. He hauled the debris to the dump. In the end, only the framing and plumbing remained, and he sold the property to another contractor. Someone Ned had known for years. That check went into his savings as well. In November, Ned asked him to drive to Charlotte to pick up a bathtub that had been delayed in delivery. On the outskirts of town, he noticed 2 new subdivisions right next to each other, with dozens of homes already built and others still under construction. Independent contractors like Ned were slowly giving way to developers who built hundreds of homes at a time. And on a whim, Jasper decided to tour one of those neighborhoods. He found himself awed by the organizational prowess necessitated by such developments, despite his certainty that he would never want to live in such a neighborhood. There was an almost desolate feel, even on those streets, with completed homes, staring at the tracks of sterile cookie-cutter houses. He suddenly realized that what would make the neighborhood more inviting were trees, not the skeletal saplings that had been planted haphazardly by the new owners, but beautiful leafy trees that grew quickly. The idea wouldn't go away, and as more subdivisions were built over the next year, he toured them as well, growing ever more certain that he was right. In early 1960, he visited the local library in search of an ideal tree, but it was no help, nor was the library in Raleigh, North Carolina, though the woman at the main desk recommended he visit the School of Agriculture in North Carolina State University. It took time and persistence to get a meeting, but the professor there, the same one who would later instruct him on how to cultivate morels, told him about a tree that the USDA was thinking of formally introducing to the United States. The professor shared photographs and information, and Jasper took it all in. Originally from Korea and China, the tree grew quickly, bloomed with white flowers in the spring, and had a lovely pyramidal shape. Dun dun dun, Illuminati confirmed. Sorry. And showcased brilliant colors in the fall. Its scientific name was Pyrus caleriana. Sorry, I don't know Latin very well. At the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they were thinking about calling it the Balfour pear, even though it would not bear any edible fruit. The professor added that few people outside of agricultural research universities and the USDA seemed to be interested in the tree at the present time, but he predicted the market would eventually grow to be substantial. Jasper worked with Garner's nursery in town to procure the obscure seeds from Korea. Mac Garner had served in the Korean War, and his wife was originally from Seoul. Using the insurance money and the proceeds from the sale of the house he leased from inexpensive land about 20 miles away and bought fertilizer. Let me see how much. Yeah, we're almost done. He took a week off work, tilled and fertilized the ground, and planted enough seeds for 5,000 trees. He hand watered them on evenings after work and on weekends, and surprising no more than himself, the seeds sprouted and burst from the soil almost immediately. He showed Audrey what he was doing when she came home for the summer. In the previous couple of years, she'd grown even more beautiful in his eyes, and they'd continue to see each other whenever she was home. They took long walks and split chocolate sodas, and she'd regale them with stories about her classes or her professors or friends she made. Sometimes when he wondered aloud whether she wanted to leave her previous life and him behind, she'd laugh and dismiss his words as nonsense. He told her regularly that he loved her, and she said the same to him. Yet, when he said goodbye to her in August for the third time, her parents looked on with the same grim expressions he'd long since grown used to. Meanwhile, he continued working for Ned and had leased even more land. He planted tens of thousands of more trees. He showed Audrey's parents what he'd been up to. It didn't fully change their mind about him. There were no sales yet, and even a market, but he liked to think that the mother's expressions seemed less pinched after that, even if her disapproval was still plain. After Audrey graduated in May 1962, she wasn't ready to begin teaching. In her mind, She'd been in school for a long time and needed a break. So instead, she went to work at her mother's clothing store. Jasper was thrilled by her return in Ashboro, and they'd picked up right off where they had left off. Then, in the spring of 1963, the USDA formally introduced the Bradford pear to the U.S. market. By that point, with Jasper's trees flourishing, the first year's crop was so large and mature enough for sale, he quit working for Ned to devote himself full-time to the trees. He dug them up, wrapping the soil in burlap, loaded them into his pickup truck, and began meeting with developers in Charlotte, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem. There's so many Salems in America, it's strange. His sale pitch was simple. He showed them the information from the USDA, kept his prices reasonable, then offered to place the trees in the fronts and backyards of the subdivisions so the developers could see for themselves how much aesthetic value they conferred. He also visited nurseries, and because he had pretty much a monopoly on the tree, in no time at all, orders began flooding in. He sold not only the entirety of the first year's crop, but much of the following years as well. I think you get the gist. Predictive programming and Nicholas Sparks counting miracles. Now, does that mean that Nicholas Sparks is Illuminati, a Satan worshiper? I'm not saying that. Don't go fucking with this dude. We don't know what the publisher told him to write, because a lot of people think just because you write a book, you get to control what you write. No, that's not how that works. Because I already was telling a buddy, a fellow conspiracy theorist, about Nicholas Sparks and what he wrote in his book predicted the Helene hurricane, and he's like, oh, so he's Illuminati. And I'm like, no, chill. We don't know if he was told to put that in the book. I don't even know Nicholas Sparks. So don't go crazy and don't fuck with Nicholas Sparks. I have no clue if the guy's cool or not. Have no clue if he's Illuminati. Sounds like he's a Christian. So let's all chill. Let's all be cool. Let me know what you guys think. Please like, share, and subscribe. And you all have a good day.